performance issues.
Okay, well.
Oh boy! Good thing this is recording. That's a perfect soundbite.
Right? That's a stinger right there.
Hello, and welcome to Guilty Pleasures, the show where we dive into pleasure, chubbing the waters of a modern horror film to find out just how guilty we need to feel about loving or hating it. Hey guys, long time no talk.
What up?
Oh my God, it's been forever.
It's been a long time, but we're back. Guilty Pleasures crew is back in the house.
Who's back?
Back again.
I missed you ladies, by the way. Can I just like start off with that to just say,
oh yes,
I know like
so
shit's been happening, you know, but I like seriously, you don't realize how much you miss somebody until like you hear their voice and you're like, oh my God, like why the fuck haven't we been doing that? What took us so long to get back to this, you know?
You know what's weird is like I felt like I didn't want to podcast because of life issues and I just wasn't in the mood and in the zone, but it's like really therapeutic and I probably should have done it sooner because it makes me feel it makes me feel alive again, for lack of a better word. It's just really nice to feel human and to be connected with people and doing what I love. So I'm very grateful.
I think there was a fear of like, you know, showing up and feeling like you're not giving your all because it's you know, obviously other things are happening and you're not, you know, your heart's not in it, or fearing that your heart wouldn't be in it anyways, and fearing that like it was just going to be this like dead air, not funny, not fun, you know, moment, and then realizing that no, like fuck that, like this is awesome and this is exactly what we needed, you know.
It is.
I think that's the funny thing about like joyful things. Like you can feel hesitant when you're not feeling joyful to go into this thing that is happy and that brings you happiness, and like you'll drag it down or like it won't bring you that same feeling of happiness you've always gotten from it. But then sometimes once you start doing it, you're like, oh right, this is joyful because it elevates things and it makes me feel better.
Yes. And
as luck would have it, or as the goddess Kelly would have it, like we have a great pick to jump back into things with.
Right.
I mean, it was a very fun watch, and I think it's going to be very fun to talk about. So maybe that's a great segue, Kelly, for you to introduce us and talk about what it is we are going to be talking about.
Let's do it, cowboy.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so how did we get here, gentle listener? Wedged between the screaming head of Dee Snider and a Canadian pro wrestler. The easy answer is Amazon Prime. All disrespect to Bezos, but I'll say this much for his little cash cow. It's a good way for me to discover movies that pass under the conventional radar. And so it was that your humble narrator found herself looking at new releases, desperate for something fun and gnarly, and there it was, Here for Blood, which is not to be mistaken for There Will Be Blood, no matter how many times I accidentally call it that during this podcast. I figured I'd give it the old try, a 10 to 15-minute watch, and then complete and utter abandonment if it didn't grab me. Friends, it grabbed me. So why, you might be asking, am I calling this a guilty pleasure? The reasons are tricky to explain, but I'll do my damnedest. For starters, it involves a number of tropes I traditionally hate. The precocious kid, the meathead with a heart of gold. Usually these things emphatically and thoroughly don't work for me. We will most certainly get into why they did this time around later, but let's put one tally into the guilty column there. Second, and let us all point appropriate fingers and call a snob, it's a movie starring a pro wrestler, which, to be clear, is a genre I fucking love. But if I'm being honest, I might be loving it a little ironically. Look, I'll watch Mr. Nanny all damn day. And it's not Christmas until I've seen Santa with muscles. But I don't usually think movies starring pro wrestlers are actually good. We accept, of course, the great John Cena here. Guilty tick number 2. Call it guilty tick 2.5 that the wrestler star actually does wrestly things, which should feel really cringy. Honestly, there's so much about this movie that just shouldn't work. But friends, I was smiling through the whole thing. And when it was finished, I had that great feeling of revelation, of having discovered some fun fucking nonsense that I wanted to share with people and kind of wished I had watched with a group. Did I feel sort of guilty? Yeah, a little. But was I pleased? You are so very goddamn right I was. And that, dear listeners, esteemed co-hosts, is the absolute definition of a guilty pleasure. Let's get the fuck into it.
Let's do it.
Nice.
None of us, like, just to clarify, are any of us here wrestling fans? Like legit wrestling fans?
No.
Okay, that's a complicated question.
Ooh, okay.
I don't like wrestling. but I like wrestlers, and I really like their singing and acting careers.
Okay.
I have forced way too many people to listen to the beautiful and tragic Hulk Hogan ballad, Hulksters in Heaven.
Wait, shut your face. What are you talking about?
It's a song that has the moving chorus of "The world just lost another Hulkamaniac."
No.
So
that sounds like a Kelly song. Yes.
Kelly, I need you to stop right now. I need you to find it, and I need you to play it for us on this podcast.
I mean, if you think I don't have that bookmarked.
Are we going to have licensing issues if I play this?
Oh my God.
Almost definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan
should we do it
strikes me as
anyways?
somebody who's probably litigious, so maybe we'll just tell our listeners, listen to Hulksters in Heaven. It's amazing.
All right, how about this? This will get us around the licensing issues. Instead of playing the song on the podcast, Kelly, could you just sing the whole thing for us?
No, I don't know all the words to it. I wish I did.
I'll do percussion.
What I can tell you is that there's these like really great studio musicians who have actually like gorgeous voices who have to sing in the background. When the Hulkster gets to heaven.
No.
It's the funniest thing in the world. It's so sincere.
Well, I know what I'm listening to after we're done wrapping up.
Oh my God.
Big recommend.
Gold.
So to rewind though to your original question, I don't watch wrestling, but for some reason I find the whole concept of it really funny and enjoyable. I have a Macho Man Randy Savage Funko Pop on my desk in my little podcast nook. I just enjoy the theatricality of it and the silliness, and I don't want to watch a bunch of like muscle-bound meatheads pretending to beat each other up, but also like really damaging their bodies. But I really do like when they like get into talking shit and their movie careers and their music careers. Love it.
This is so confusing. So like you love the entertainment theatricality of it, but you don't like to actually watch it, but you like the concept of how theatrical and entertaining it is.
You're not the first person to suggest it's a little
but I'm okay with that. Like, because I mean, as a theater nerd, like I can get behind like all of the shit that goes into the whole presentation. Like I can totally get behind that and say that, okay, that's a lot of fucking work and that's cool. But I'm with Kelly. Like will I watch it? Fuck no. Like, oh God, no. But I do love a lot of the actors or a lot of the wrestlers that have transitioned over into acting, and even some of the big meatheads in the dumb action movies that I watch, they're some of the reasons that they're so enjoyable. So I can absolutely kind of second that, saying, yeah, do I watch wrestling? No. Do I like wrestlers? Sure. Yeah, they're pretty badass.
Steph, what's your experience with professional wrestling?
I mean, fairly non-existent.
Okay. What's your feeling on professional wrestlers as actors, like The Rock and Cena and, that sort of thing?
Yeah, no, I enjoy them. I like I think it's endearing. This does have like a trope that I think you said you hated this trope, but I sort of love the trope of the like sensitive meathead, the guy who's like, looks like he could kill you by looking at you, but is really just a big old teddy bear. I think that's fun and sweet. I love to see, professional athletes, professional wrestlers, tough guy type guys, doing comedy, being sweet, being vulnerable. I think that's there's something very charming about that to me. So I'm here for it.
Guys, did either of you hear of this movie before I suggested it?
No.
Nope.
No. When I watched it, totally green, and I've now watched it multiple times because I genuinely just enjoy the shit out of it. But every time something new happened, I was like, holy shit, what? This is where we're going with this? There's suddenly a talking Dee Snider head that you're feeding people to? There were just so many moments where I was like, what the fuck is going on here?
And so that's where I kind of got confused, because the first half I was like, oh, okay, I got it. I know exactly what this movie is. And then
kind of standard.
Then that happened.
That's a little bit more. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then all of that happened. And I was like, holy fuck, I had no idea what to expect. And which was the biggest blessing for me with this movie, because I was kind of like, and then all of that. And I was like, oh yeah, no, fuck it. I am all in now. This movie just knew how to hook me right at that. It waited. It did a little bit of foreplay at first. And it was like, nope, you're in, it was great. It was funny? Well done.
I was talking to one of my friends about doing this podcast and the movie that we were going to watch. And I was saying that I was so excited to do this because, a lot of times going into this, I have a pretty good idea of what I'm going to get. Mm-hmm. But I actually had no idea. I said, this is a film. I was telling my friend, I was like, this is a film that either my co-hosts are going to be like, holy shit, that was so much fucking fun. I loved every minute of it. Or they're going to hate it with a fiery passion. Like there is no in between. And I really have no idea which side of the fence they're going to land on. Like, Kelly, I knew you picked this, but I didn't know if you picked it because it was so fucking you balls to the wall insane that you wanted to talk about how stupid and ridiculous it was, or you picked it because you genuinely had affection for it. I didn't know.
Both. It's both. I mean,
which is what makes it such a guilty pleasure.
I loved it because it's absolutely so fucking stupid and bananas and wild, and like every decision is the weirdest possible decision you could make. Like from like the minuscule ones to having like a stupid thing that made me laugh every time it happened was when he just kept calling them sex perverts.
Sex perverts.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I wrote that down
every time. Like I laughed so hard because he said it so sincerely. And I laughed so hard every time he said sex perverts. But then like the giant, bizarre bananas decisions, like again, a talking head of Dee Snider that eats people and just spends, I think every line that Dee Snider has is just variations of feed me.
Feed me.
Like,
feed me.
To his credit, like sometimes he's kind of plaintive about it, like feed me. And to have like,
and it just wanted me to like, it wanted to make me go like, feed me Seymour.
It's
like,
very Little Shop of Horrors. Yeah, I really
it is. Yes, intentionally
but, like,
so.
also
I'm sure
to present this thing that like is seemingly supposed to be scary, and then to just have your heroes gradually getting more and more impatient with the Dee Snider head. I like kind of just annoyed by it, was so funny to me and so bananas. Like truly every decision this movie made, I thought that's the craziest thing you could possibly do. And I just wanted to keep seeing it top itself, and it kept delivering.
Like, what is it going to do next? What is it going to do next? And it tops it every single time with what it's going to do next. Yes.
I want to, if you guys are okay with it, I want to talk about the first kill, the sort of introduction to the film, which I found so bizarre because tonally it's so disconnected from the rest of the film. Like it made me think I was getting one type of film and I was getting something completely different.
Agreed.
Which I think is like the point, right? It seems like it's like an intentional rug pull. Yeah.
Yeah. Misdirect.
Yes.
So the first killer, he's one of the cult members. In case you guys didn't know, and I don't even know if they say this in the film, I just had to look it up. His name is Loverboy.
Loverboy.
Of course it is.
And I was like, okay. I was like, first of all, this is Kilf horror, which is very much like if it was MILF horror, but instead of mom, it's a killer. You guys can fill in the blanks there. So I was like, hello. It was like if, you know, when people write sexy stories about Michael Myers or they cosplay as like a super hot Jason and they've got their shirt unbuttoned and they're showing off their bulging pec
or
muscles.
Pyramid Head.
Yes.
Slutty Freddy Krueger.
It was
that hunk.
It was like
that slab of manliness.
The way we sexualize killers who aren't really very overtly sexy. This guy is like overtly sexy and plays it up. And that whole kill scene is basically like a seduction scene. And they're like dancing. And then he like, which I was like, holy fuck. Cause he like stabs her repeatedly in the vagina. And I was like, wow, that's something else. And it really reminded me because there's like a bunch of scholarly analysis on slashers and, you know, the tropes of a slasher and basically how slashers treat women. And there's this one very specific trope. Yes. They never use a gun. They always use a knife because it's much more intimate. It's much more physical. It is basically like penetration. And this like took that to an even more literal level.
This makes it literal. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's weird because it's such a like, it makes you're like, because this film is so weird. You're like, is that meta commentary? Like, is this a very pointed commentary they're making? Is this just supposed to be fun? Like, what is this scene?
I'm hesitant to call this movie smart because that feels like it's antithetical to me saying that it's incredibly stupid. But like, I did feel like it did things that were smart and that were aware of the genre and that did like play with conventions and it did like subvert your expectations. And the only way it was able to subvert your expectations was by knowing the genre so thoroughly that it understood what they were going to be and then didn't do what you expected because they knew what it was going to be that you expected.
It's almost so dumb that it's smart. Like, but there are
and I
moments
can't tell if that's like a really
brilliance.
intentional sort of like,
Right.
or if it's just like actual like ineptitude that just really worked out gorgeously. I'm leaning towards an actual degree of like savviness and awareness, because there are jokes that are genuinely like funny and like not just like bonking your head, farting, pulling your finger sort of ways. Like, I think it's pretty funny when the little girl she doesn't swear, but then he swears, so she gets to say two or something along those lines. Like, there are just little things throughout that are actually pretty clever and feel like they're informed. And not just them being like, we're going to throw all of the shit at the wall and see if anything sticks. Like, it feels earned to me.
No, I genuinely felt like this felt like a film that was made by horror fans for horror fans. Like, it felt sincere. It felt, like they wanted to have fun with it. They wanted to be a little outrageous and silly, but also, it's a really good horror movie. Like, if you take out all the like silly campiness of it, there's like some really fun stuff happening. There's a lot of gore. There's some badass kills. It's very respectful of horror fans, I think.
Yeah, I don't think you can have that kind of commitment to practical effects and not be respectful of the genre.
And that's what I was going to say. I think that just, if nothing else, just the devotion to sticking with this practical in almost every single facet of this film shows that they truly do have a love for where this genre started from, and whether or not any of it was intentional. I think some of it was, some of it wasn't. But I mean, this is a film made by people who actually not only love the genre, but get the genre. Because we see a lot of these kind of lower budget films where they have a love of the genre, but they don't get what they don't get what made those classic films work. But every once in a while you'll see a director that genuinely gets it, and it's so refreshing.
Yeah, and this movie really has everything. Like, if we're going to give a maybe nutshell overview for people who maybe haven't watched it, it's the basic concept is hunky Canadian wrestler, Sean something or the other, Sean Roberts, I think his name is, has to step in for his girlfriend to babysit this clever little girl. So you've already got the babysitter in distress trope covered. Just in this case, instead of like tiny little Jamie Lee Curtis, it is 300 pounds of muscle, which is a pretty funny thing to do. It's got cultists, because while he's babysitting this child, cultists come in. And so you've also got a home invasion situation. There are zombies and there are demonic sacrifices. And it really kind of has almost everything you'd hope for in a horror movie. It's
even got some Lovecraftian kind of elder gods elements in the background of these things are trying to these things are trying to appease, So it's got a whole toolbox.
Which fuck H.P. Lovecraft, of course, but
it makes me laugh every time you say that, Kelly. Like,
I just get the giggles.
No, when you say $100p, I just it makes me giggle. Just a little FYI, I'm not sure if you guys knew, but the guy, the wrestler, the babysitter, is Sean Roberts. He played Wesker in the Resident Evil movies.
I have not seen any of those.
Oh, holy shit.
I'm really surprised by that, to be honest.
Well, I'm not really usually into like zombie things, and I never played the video game, so it just didn't really hit my spot.
Honestly, the video games
I tried to watch the
TV
show, and I liked parts of it, but like it never really quite got me.
I think we might have a future guilty pleasure.
We might have to, yeah.
Because it's not what you would necessarily call good.
No.
Any of the films?
No.
You don't want to commit to good.
No, I wouldn't use that word.
Fine,
but
good. Yeah.
But fun.
Yeah.
But he looks like, I didn't recognize him. He doesn't look anything like he does in the movies. But
no, he was even in the first X-Men movie. He was Rogue's boyfriend that she kisses and knocks him out. And again, like, you look at all these older roles for him, and you look at him now, and you're like, well, yeah. I mean, he's like nothing. But it's just like, holy shit! Like, he looks nothing like he used to.
What's funny, because I don't know that I would say he was a good actor, but I think it was a really good fit for him. Like, it felt to me like he felt very sincere and very genuine in that role, and it was a good use of him. Like,
he wasn't a traditionally good actor. No.
Right.
I thought he had great comedic timing. I thought he was.
But he was fun.
That's what I was going to say. Like, I thought he was really funny, and I thought it used his skills as a wrestler surprisingly well. Like, he
went all in. Yeah.
I thought
you
that
can
the
forgive a
line where
lot when an actor goes all into something like that. You
When-
can
when he
forgive kind of
finds
the lack
the,
of
uh,
acting.
when he finds the dead stoner pizza guy, and he's like, and the worst part is he was a fan of
He
mine.
was a fan of
I
mine.
lost my shit. He says it so absolutely sincerely. And like he sees nothing wrong in being like the worst thing about this guy being horrifyingly murdered is just that he was a fan of mine. I lost it. He delivered so many lines in a way that I was like, this guy is either kind of a comedic genius or he has stumbled so beautifully into perfect comedic timing that I can't argue with either option.
So that
cracked me up.
line where you talked about sex perverts, I wrote it down because it is so like I laughed out so hard where he does this. He goes, okay, everybody calm down. All right. I think I figured out what's going on here. We're under attack by a gang of sex perverts.
Perverts.
And it's so
good.
he delivers it so well and so sincerely. And I busted out laughing. I was like, holy shit. And it's pretty early
Like
in the
he
movie.
just figured it all out right then. Yep, smartest guy in the room. I got it. I got it, guys. I got
calm
it.
Down, calm down.
Hold my beer. I got it. Yeah.
I zeroed in on that line because I felt like that was the point where I was truly just like, oh, I see what you're doing. This is funny. Like you are being intentionally funny, but like you're also being almost Evil Dead-esque in that like you've got things that are kind of genuinely frightening, but also there's like a cartoonish element of horror to all of this. And you've got this like kind of weirdly charismatic lead who's also an absolute dipshit. Like Ashes, like, and so the second I was like, okay, now I'm totally dialed into what you're doing. I was just 100% in and did not look back. Like everything about it delighted me.
It really does harken back
so
to those.
good.
So good.
Evil Dead movies.
And I love the fact, and I love the fact that they didn't write it. Usually kids in movies, they write them they're either total
assholes.
Obnoxious brats or they're very pretentious, like they're like mini adults in these like 8-year-old body, and they're all sophisticated. She's just like a normal, typical girl, and she plays it very sincerely, and she's not annoying, and she's very endearing. I thought it was great. You don't see that very often.
And so much of the movie kind of hinges on their relationship specifically. And I thought like, oh, they're going to do that thing where like they don't like each other initially and like they have to learn. But like instead, they just have it that like, no, they kind of get along pretty well from the beginning.
Like they have a connection pretty quick. It's awesome. Yeah.
Like it's actually super, super sweet. And I can't believe I'm giving this movie this much credit. But like I thought that the scene where she talks about her dad dying actually felt really genuine and sweet and well played to me. And I was like, both of these actors are doing a pretty good job of not overdoing this, not making it maudlin, but like making it feel like, okay, for whatever reason, she's connecting with him, he's connecting with her, and they're having like a little moment.
This was the movie that actually got that age correct, where a lot of movies, even the big Hollywood movies, get kids so fucking wrong. And it's clear that the writers of these movies don't have kids, because these are, as a father, it's like, that's how, obviously the situation's batshit crazy, but that's how my kids would be kind of behaving. Like that's normal. That is normal child. And so of all movies, this movie nails it. And she's so fantastic. I mean, she's clearly the best actor out of the bunch anyways. Yeah. She's fantastic.
Yeah, she was really, really good. And like, I think she brought out the best in him. Like the scenes where they were together were the best. Like, it's a dumb little thing, but like when she asks for triple cheese on the pizza and he says, we'll make it happen. I was like, that's just really cute. Like you've done this very little bit of world building and this little bit of relationship building that feels really sincere and makes me care about these two as like an odd couple buddy comedy thing.
Did you guys, there were a lot of kills in this movie, which I greatly appreciated. Did either of you have a favorite or one that stands out? I definitely have mine.
Oh God. Well, it's not a kill, but I do think that like just as a person who really is like a Stan Winston, Tom Savini, Ray Baker super fan, like the burn when he pushes his face against the burner, like I know it's not a kill, but like that, like the practical effects of that sequence, I was just
so
like, this
good.
is so good. Like it's the melting like little bits of fat falling into it. Like I just was like, this is.
Yep.
I'm totally sold on this movie and its commitment to practical effects.
They linger for a while on that scene too. Like they don't pull away. They really go
it really lets you be uncomfortable with it. Mm-hmm. And then like when he pulls his face off of it, like the sound effects and like it's really horrible and I love it. It's so gnarly.
So good.
So not a kill, but that's what I'm kind of just
I think
going
that counts. Yeah, for sure.
That's the thing that got me.
Yeah, that's same, because it is like to the point of, it's that cartoonish kind of violence that lingers long enough, and the sizzling. I mean, you can almost like smell the burning flesh, is how well they handle that scene with the practical effects. And so, I would say that one out of all of them, because I mean, there's a bunch that are kind of very similar and very well done. I mean, I love the practical effects in this movie are just genuinely some of the best I think I've ever seen. They're fantastic, but that scene more than anything else.
You know what's interesting about this film that I give it credit for is that they sort of put, because I would argue that, yes, that is probably the best visual effect in the whole film. And they put it right up front. Like, it's very early in the film. And most films of this nature there won't be much happening until like the very final act. And that's when they sort of go balls to the wall and it gets crazy. But they put their best shit right up front, which is a bold and brave move, I think. And I appreciated it because right from the beginning, you're like, holy shit.
Well, especially because later on, that same dude goes back to the griddle to cauterize something, and they don't even show it. And then they show the gnarly, gruesome, face melting for like 5 minutes, but then they don't show other things. So it is a very bold choice.
But it's also pretty smart because like it tells you right out the gate, like, look, we're not pulling any punches. Like, we're not fucking around. So like either you are the kind of person who likes this, or you're not. And I think they understood that the kind of people who like it, people like us, are really passionate and are going to do a lot of word of mouth, a lot of like proselytizing about it. Because I truly, like, I finished this movie and I felt like I have to tell everybody who would like this about this movie.
Now that you say that, though, and now that you ask that question, I do think that if I had to pick a kill, and not that scene, but a kill, I think my favorite kill of the movie would be when, I guess her name's Phoebe. I just call her Homewrecker because I'm pretty sure that she like wrecked his marriage or something, and that's why they're together. But she like stabs the dude in the neck with like a fucking butcher knife or like a cleat or a chopper.
Oh,
and then he hits him with a frying pan and like takes the head off. It's not the kill so much that's fucking delightful. It's the like literal gallons of blood that come shooting out all over her, and then stop. And then starts up again. Like, that was fucking priceless. And I think that was about the moment when I was like, yep, I am all in on this movie. Because I get it. Like, you're very Evil Dead-ish. I see what you're doing here. Yeah. Fucking awesome.
It lives up to its name for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of blood.
There's a lot of blood.
And we're here for it. My favorite scene, it wasn't so much the kill. It was just the writing and the way that the actors portray this. But the scene where the boyfriend gets stabbed to death and they're like, and the girls are like screaming and like, oh my God, we got to help him. And he's like, no, he's dead. He's dead. And then like, they're like, no, he's not dead. And then like the killer just keeps stabbing and stabbing and stabbing. And he keeps like gasping. And he's like, okay, no, he's now he's dead. And then he's still not dead. And she's like, go help him. And he's like, no, he's dead now. And it's just so funny. It goes on for a bit and it's really well played comedically. And it's gory, but it's also super funny. And just, I sort of found it very endearing. I love that scene.
Well, that's part of why this movie worked for me, because like, I appreciate cool kills to a certain extent, but like I want them to have more to them. I want them to either have some sort of emotional resonance or some sort of narrative significance, or in this case, to be kind of amazing comedy set pieces. Almost every kill was also funny in some way.
I'm willing to forgive a film like this for a lot of things when they go all in on the comedy, on the practical effects, and when clearly they're winking at the audience, and everybody in the cast is having a fucking blast. I
think the characterization is something that warrants a moment of conversation, because it's also subverted my expectations, because I really didn't know exactly like where they were, because there are tropes that you've come to sort of, have low expectations for. And I really wasn't sure what they were going to do with like this smart girl who's with this like beefcake meathead. And I really thought, my first thought going into it was that she was going to have set him up instead of it being that the parents had set her up. Because usually you kind of feel like, well, she's really smart and he's just kind of this like beefcake meathead who loves her and will do anything for her. And, usually that's kind of a clue that somebody is, disingenuous. And I kind of loved the idea that you're supposed to just think, no, these two dorks just love each other. They really care about each other, and she's really truly grateful for him covering her babysitting shift, and he's loves her enough to do it. And I kind of loved that. I thought that it weirdly did actually ring true. Did you guys see the parents twist coming?
Oh yeah. As soon as the stepdad was introduced, I knew it. I was like, oh yeah. And then like I thought for a second when they kind of cut away to the barn, the first time they cut away to the barn and they show like the ringleader of the cultists or whatever, and you see his feet first, you know, and he's dressed in like these loafers, you know, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be the dad. It's gonna be the dad. Of course it wasn't the dad, but I still knew. I was like, that motherfucker, like he is so skeezy. Like there's no way that he is just this innocent, you know, like fumbling stepdad type. Like, no, I wasn't buying it for a second. But initially, before I met that fucktard, like I thought for sure that she was kind of setting him up because, you know, looking into it, I mean, Sean Roberts is like 12 years older than the girl that plays Joelle Farrow. Like, you know, and you're looking at him, it's like clearly he is much older than she is. So I was like, okay, there's something here. She latched onto him and like, you know, caught his eye or something for a reason. I thought for sure that she was in on it until the stepdad was introduced. And I was like, nope, never mind. It's the parents.
Steph?
I was actually surprised by it. And I don't know, maybe, you know, sometimes I watch a movie and I'm like watching it intellectually and I'm sort of analyzing it. And a lot of times when I'm doing that, I remain sort of 2 or 3 steps ahead of where it's going. I think because this one was just so, I was just along for the ride. You know, I was just buckled in and having the best time. I wasn't like predicting where it was going. And for me, I thought the twist was really fun and it worked and it did surprise me. It may just be because I'm stupid and I just wasn't like, it may be obvious as hell, but it surprised me.
No, Steph, you are not stupid at all. What you do, and something that I find so refreshing and charming about you, is that you watch every movie with the best possible faith. So it's like you're saying, yes, filmmaker, I trust you. Take me on this journey. And like, I would love to just watch movies that way because I feel like I've kind of like got this weird thing that comes from years of dating pretentious assholes where like you have to say, well, I already knew what that was going to happen. And like, I hate that. I would love to just watch something purely without trying to figure out like, what's the thing, you know, like what's the twist? What's the whole thing that all this building up to? Like, just engage with the ride the way it was designed to be experienced. And I think you do that better than almost anybody I've ever met. And I think that's fantastic.
She doesn't have any cinephile cynicism in her, which is beautiful.
Exactly. So the fact that you can be both a cinephile and not a fucking snob is fantastic, I think.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. I think it's just there's so few things in life that are just pure and joyful, and movies are one of them for me. So it's my happy place. So yeah, I just honestly, to your point, yeah, I was just like along for the ride. I was like, I am just locked in. You know, it's been a while. This is going to sound maudlin. I don't mean it to be, but it's just been a while since I've had like a smile stretch from ear to ear. You know, and I've been like watching a lot of movies, but most of them are pretty serious, like highbrow, and I'm reviewing them. So I've got my intellectual cap on, and to just like watch something that is just fun and enjoyable and doesn't ask anything more out of me was a real treat. And it made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, which is a weird thing to say about a movie called Here for Blood. But it really did. It gave me like warm fuzzies. And I was like, this is just delightful. And yeah.
I honestly felt the same way because I don't know if you guys feel this way too, but there's so goddamn much content that like I tend to over research things and be like, well, is this worth dedicating, you know, however much time to, or like, would it be better if I watched this other thing? And like, I get so hung up on picking something that I tend to over research things. And I don't know what it was about this movie that I was just like, fuck it. I'm going in. If I don't like it, I'll turn it off. But like, I'm not going to do any research at all. I'm not going to look up Rotten Tomato scores. I'm not going to look up synopses. I'm not going to look up a trailer. I'm just going to watch this goddamn movie. And I tend to be a little bit like annoyed by people who say about trailers giving too much away all the time, like blah, 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 whatever. But like at the same time, I had so much pleasure watching this movie, having known nothing at all about it and just experiencing it totally totally cold and totally green and totally wet, and just like knowing nothing and having it just happen to me was magical. And it's been so long since I've had that with something that like I knew nothing going into it, and like then it just unfolded, and I had so much fun watching it that like truly my only regret was that I didn't have somebody to watch it with me, because I felt like it'd be a really fun movie to watch with like a group of friends.
Honestly, it shouldn't work because it's throwing a lot at us, and usually when a film tries to do too much, it ends up not doing anything very well. This film does a lot and somehow does it all really well. And on paper, like if I probably read the script for this, I'd be like, no, I don't think so. But somehow it all works and works really well. It's kind of mind blowing. I
completely agree. Like it's taking so many different horror like subgenres and bringing them in, and like it should be like wildly tonally inconsistent, but instead I actually think it's unexpectedly tonally consistent in that like yes, there's all of these weird plot left turns, but like the entire time it never gets too heavy, it never gets like too haunting or too troubling. Like there's always a sense of like mischief instead of danger, if that makes any sense. And every like bizarre bananas turn, like the way that the movie is structured, I feel like you just don't question it. Whereas some movies are, I don't know, they're too grounded or something. And you feel like, well, no, I need this to make so much more sense than it does. And does anything in this movie make sense? Virtually no. But like, I don't fucking care. Like I don't think it wants you to feel like, well, this is grounded and based in reality. It's just saying like, okay, come along for the ride and we'll give you a good time. And I'm like, okay, yes, I paid my ticket. I'm happy to be here. Thank you. Let's have fun.
You know what really sealed the deal for me with this movie, though, because I'm basically in by that point and before the head showed up. But what really sealed the deal for me was when Loverboy pulls the cassette out of his codpiece and pops it in the boombox.
That studded codpiece.
And I was like, what the fuck? Like that is so like, good. Oh my God. Like, and who would even think of that? You know, and then B, to throw that up on film. And then he like closes the cassette lid with the codpiece before he starts playing the music, you know, and it's not even done in a way that's supposed to be sexy or funny. It's on screen. It just kind of happens. You know, it's just, they just threw it up there just to see what would happen. And I was dying. I was like, oh my God, of all the things that made me LOL, like it was the cassette and the codpiece.
I think we...
Yo, go ahead. Sorry.
No, please go, Steph.
No, I was just going to say that I was Team Loverboy all day and night. Like I was like so into this character.
I knew you
so were into it.
With his shaved chest.
So good. I was like, was this movie made for me specifically? This is my fanfic.
I knew that. Like, honestly, even before I suggested this movie, I was like, Steph would like this.
I'm very transparent.
This guy. It's funny though, because I think like with a horror comedy, we talk about the best kills, but like I think we also have to kind of talk about like what was the thing that made you laugh, you know? And for me, it was 100% sex perverts, but I also kind of like the moment where the little girl asks him like, "Is my mom a bad person?" And he just goes, "Yes."
Yeah, kind of.
It's like, wow.
She kind of is.
So something I can honestly say didn't register about this movie that sometimes and can be really impactful in a horror movie is the score. Did you guys have any thoughts on the soundtrack or the score? Because I can't remember any of it.
I was going to say
awful.
I don't remember it. Like it didn't stand out in any way, shape, or form.
I feel like maybe there were like some like kind of new metal.
There's some butt rock kind of new metal like, tracks on there that were so lifeless and so blah. It was just like I couldn't. The soundtrack was awful.
I did write down that it is a little bit like it felt like, especially towards the end, it got a little rock exploitation. Where, you know, it was like those kind of like heavy metal horror movies. It sort of had that sound and that vibe to it, which I mean, I thought was fun as shit. I loved it. But I think that the soundtrack was sort of commiserate with that kind of vibe.
And all the good songs had already been taken, so they had to like deal with what was left at the bottom of the barrel. So they're just like, okay, well, that one hasn't been used in a movie yet. We'll pick that.
But it sort of works. It's like, I don't know if the music is intentionally bad or if it just like they thought it was cool or what. Like, I can't really tell.
I think it legitimately ties into the whole semi-pro underground vibe of the wrestling match that he's in the beginning. I think that was a very intentional choice. Yeah.
I don't know. Did either of you watch How I Met Your Mother?
No.
Oh, okay. There's this dumb joke on it.
You seem so sad. You're like, oh.
She's like,
Well,
Okay.
only because this reference isn't going to make any sense. But
Sigh.
there's this very dumb joke where James Vanderbeek from Dawson's Creek is on it, and he's actually very funny. But like, he has a metal band, and they have this song that's called "Murder Train," and he wants one of the characters to play it over a morning news segment, and it's of like adoptable puppies, and so it's like all these pictures of cute puppies, and in the background they're like, "Murder! Hop aboard the murder train," and that's what the soundtrack in my mind is, just Murder Train over and over again. I really liked the barn set piece at the end, and I just wanted to know what you guys thought of it.
go for it, Steph.
I mean, no, I liked it. The reason I paused is because I did like it. I just don't have a lot of intriguing things to say about it.
That's okay.
But yeah, no,
I've got notes.
It was okay.
Oh,
Notes.
okay. All right. Is it about the realism of the situation, Jack?
Oh,
I've got notes on that too,
Oh,
but
do
no,
you
I
have-
actually have notes about the whole barn, like everything about that.
Okay,
Okay.
barn it up.
All right, so I love the fact that barn it up. All right, barnstorm it. So I love the fact that you've got all this crazy bloody baking some dude's face on a griddle shenanigans going on in this house. This well-to-do couple's house out in the middle of wherever the fuck they're at, and they've got this huge barn. I mean, this yuppie couple that drives like a Acura has this huge barn for whatever fucking reason. And that's where these cultists are just kind of hanging out. But I find it endlessly amusing that while a couple of the psychos at a time are being completely inept in the house and failing to grab the kid, failing to stop the roided out wrestler, the rest of the cultists are just hanging out in the barn doing
I kind of love that, honestly.
whatever they're doing. Like, what are they? Are they scrolling TikTok? Like, are they looking up cannibal recipes? Like, what the fuck are they just doing in this barn? Like, just hanging out.
Preparing.
For all the fact that I love that there's this like trunk of pure evil that's just kind of hanging out in the barn that they're waiting to open up, and it's kind of the portal to the nether realm or to the ancient gods or whatever it is. I love that. But I also hate it when movies introduce like the big bad, if you will, the villain, and he's got the mask and, he's well dressed. He's got the purple suit or whatever. He's looking super dapper, but they introduce him and they give him the aura of being somebody super evil and super important. And then what's that?
You mean the actor who's not quite Giancarlo Esposito, but you kind of feel like he should
not
be?
Quite. Yeah. And then they just have that character. They like give him like this whole look and this vibe. And then he ends up doing absolutely fuck all, like until the plot needs him to do something. I mean, he's just like hanging out in this barn for fucking hours waiting for his like inept servants to go and take care of things. And I just kind of went off on this tangent and I kind of got in this fever dream of how he's just kind of middle managing the fuck out of that entire situation where he's working around the problem with like every half measure that he can possibly throw at it instead of just resolving things himself or with like his workforce. He literally does everything he can do, everything in his power to avoid doing the actual work. Like he tasks the fucking new guy or the intern, or he's like, well, let's raise the dead and they'll go resolve it, and like he threatens his employees when they're kind of like questioning, like, what are we doing? And he's like, oh, I've never failed a fucking whatever before, summoning before or something. And it's like, he is just middle managing the fuck out of this whole situation. And I was dying because it made me feel like the whole
felt kind of meta to me. That,
yeah, well, and I think so.
That is something that's
and
done in a lot of like straight horror movies that you're kind of like, wait, what?
Like, why is this guy just standing here? What are they doing? And while I feel that the whole movie, like inadvertently, of course, because this is definitely not Dawn of the Dead, but I feel like it's almost like an inadvertent critique of like millennial and Gen X workplace mentalities. Because it's like this is corporate America in this barn happening right now. Like nobody's helping anybody out. Nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. Like this guy is just tasking, go do it. Oh, that doesn't work out. Okay, well, you go do it. Instead of like saying, hey, why don't you all just go in there and get them? And like he's got employees just kind of sitting around. And I thought that was fucking, to me, that was so funny.
Hey, yes. Jack.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any other plot holes you might want to share with the group?
Oh my God. Yes, I have so many.
Is it time for Jack's Get Off My Lawn segment?
It is time for Jack's like old man act. And yes, so I am going to go into some moronic movie mistakes because I have a list. And keeping with the theme of our movie. I'm going to do it in my best wrestling announcer voice.
Oh boy.
And we'll see how this plays out. Okay. So,
no, I don't think so.
here we go. Here for blood, moronic movie mistakes. Good evening, fight fans, and welcome to the inaugural presentation of Moronic Movie Mistakes. I'm your host, Geronimo Jack, and tonight we are broadcasting live from the high desert of Utah, home of pious underwear, extreme opioid addiction, and Jell-O concoctions which single-handedly violate the Geneva Convention. I know your time is precious, ladies and gentlemen, so let's toss our opponent into a turnbuckle and get right to the main event. Mistake number one. Since when are a good chunk of wrestling fans made up of urban punks who shop at Hot Topic? Like, seriously, like that whole opening scene. Who are these fans at this fucking wrestling tournament? And on that note, since when are the judges of semi-pro wrestling matches these old goth has-beens that are dressed in like some half-assed What We Do in the Shadows cosplay? I didn't know that vampires even liked wrestling. Baseball, of course, because everyone knows that bloodsuckers and ball sluggers are a match made in fanfic hell. But wrestling? Come on. Mistake number two. Knives do not make a metallic sound as they swish through the air. It's like when movies give us beeps on radar screens or the timers for explosives. These things do not make noise. They very intentionally do not make noise. Neither do blades slicing through nothing, ladies and gentlemen. But since just about every single movie commits that particular sin, we'll just skate on past it. Mistake number three. Why is the cut on Tom's arm not bleeding? He gets slashed pretty good by what I'm going to call grill face. But up until the point that they put a bandage on it, he's never actually bleeding. It's never dripping or gushing or running or anything like that. And yet his punctured foot gushes like someone dropped food coloring into Old Faithful. For a movie that went all in on the Gru, why skimp on something so simple as that? Okay, number four. Mistake number four. The mysterious case of the inconsistent cutlery. Okay, so ladies, this one is a little more detailed, unfolds across multiple scenes, and is arguably my biggest pet peeve in regards to this whole movie. It's a little detailed, so bear with me. The first instance of the inconsistent cutlery is when Footface, they call him Spinhead. I call him Footface. He's the dude with the upside down mask. Stabs Tom in the top of the foot with a pretty gnarly knife, which, to be fair, is a big ouchie, major boo-boo. But then Footface just walks away to go find Grace, leaving the knife embedded in Tom's foot. And Tom, Mr. I'm 5'10", 300-pound wrestler, just stands there and lets him leave. But let me repeat this. The bad guy leaves his fucking knife, his only weapon, stuck in an opponent's foot, an opponent who is far larger than he, might I add. And then, once Footface leaves to go after the kid, and after hemming and hawing for several minutes, Tom finally pulls the knife out. Now, what does he do next? Does he take it with him? No. He drops it on the floor. What the actual fuck? There are masked lunatics in the house, and he leaves a weapon just lying there on the carpet. And then, later, when he's down in the kitchen, after subduing Footface, Tom grabs a blade from the knife block. Okay, he's got a knife again. The movie makes a very obvious point of showing him holding this knife as he hears Flipface struggling upstairs. But then, when he walks back into the room where Flipface is tied up, he no longer has the knife again. It's just gone. Why can't anybody hold on to their fucking weapon in this movie?
They have very small or very weak hands.
They do. Mistake number five, the very considerate psycho killer. This one piggybacks off of the previous mistake. Okay, so Beefcake Tom incapacitates a masked psychopath, ties him up, but just his hands, and not behind his back, which would make sense. No, he ties him up in front of him instead, and then leaves him in an unlocked room, and then just walks away, walks downstairs. And when the killer wakes up, instead of trying to escape or looking for a tool to free himself, he just sits in the room struggling with the knot, making all sorts of noise, like he's stamping his boots and he's like grunting and moving around. But let me reiterate, his feet are not tied. His hands are not tied behind his back. This dude has like almost full range of mobility. That he's in a room that locks from the inside. He's in that room. He could just get up and leave. He could go to the barn. He could do anything. But no, he just sits there and struggles like a cartoon villain. And then Phoebe is even shocked when she's like, you left a guy, like you left one of them just up there? And Tom's like, yeah. It's just like one of the only legitimate points of concern in the whole film where somebody's like, hey, why did you do that? And finally, mistake number 6. Wow, Phoebe cleaned up super quick with just that dry hand towel. I mean, she got positively drenched by a blood bukkake, which one of the best movies, one of the movie's best scenes, by the way.
My.
But somehow, a few minutes later, it's like Mr. Clean had come by and given her one hell of a squeaky clean quickie because she is like almost perfectly clean. How did she get like 5 gallons of blood out of her hair and clothing so effectively? Like she'd have needed like fucking Dawn and an industrial strength pressure washer just to make a dent. And those, ladies and gentlemen, are my top 6 challengers for the film's moronic movie mistakes. They may not be as brutal as a pile driver off of the top rope, but they hurt all the same. Be sure to stick around after the broadcast to find out how you, yes, you, can get a free Book of Mormon, a rollicking tale of portents, passion, and persecution. Ghost written by the OG himself, Mr. Jesus Christ, Esquire.
Woo! Ow! Okay, so Jack, I'm hearing you have a couple of things that you think aren't entirely accurate. Hey, Steph!
Yes!
Do you have any kind of a rebuttal? Maybe something where you are desperately seeking substance?
It's funny that you should ask, because in fact, I do.
Woo!
I do have some comments to counter that takedown. Yeah.
Let's hear them.
Okay.
I like it. I love it.
So, on its surface, I know that this is a gleefully over-the-top horror comedy. But I would like to take a minute to address some of the film's thoughtful and provoking deeper themes that might have easily been overlooked. Now, essentially, Here for Blood is a postmodern deconstruction of societal norms and existential dread. Beneath its visceral veneer lies a labyrinthian exploration of the human condition. The protagonist, a wrestler turned babysitter, serves as the perfect embodiment of Nietzsche's Übermensch. By transcending the traditional boundaries of both hypermasculinity and nurturing femininity, he becomes a synthesis of opposing forces. This duality allows him to navigate the chaotic landscape of the film's narrative, much as Nietzsche's Superman navigates the moral wasteland of a post-God world. The excessive gore, far from being gratuitous, serves as a powerful metaphor for the fluidity of identity in our postmodern society. As blood flows freely, blurring the lines between individuals, we're forced to confront the arbitrary nature of our perceived boundaries. Are we not all the same crimson essence beneath our superficial differences? The fusion of wrestling and horror serves as the perfect allegory for Camus' notion of the absurd. Just as the wrestler grapples with literal monsters, we all must wrestle with the inherent meaningless of our existence. The over-the-top nature of these encounters only underscores the fundamental absurdity of our struggles. In conclusion, Here for Blood is not just a film. It's a philosophical treatise splattered across celluloid. It challenges us to look beyond the gore and gags to see the reflection of our own existential crisis. In its excessiveness, we find truth. In its absurdity, we find meaning. And in its blood-soaked frames, we find ourselves. As we grapple with the profound implications of this work, we're left with one haunting question. Are we not all, in some way, here for blood? The end.
Wow. Wow. I don't know if it's just that I'm one pumpkin beer too far, but that was fucking beautiful.
That's like a master's thesis. That's like a dissertation right there. Holy shit.
Great job, guys. You've given me a lot to think about as the arbiter of these two respective viewpoints.
Oh my God. That was fun.
Love it. That was fun.
Final round.
Mine's just a haiku, so it's just 3 little lines.
Do it. Go for it, Steph. I want to hear it.
Am I going first?
Do you want to, or I can go first?
How long is yours? Is yours like a long poem or is it a little?
No, mine's a limerick. So.
Oh, a limerick. Okay, you go first.
Okay. All right. So here we go.
This movie is mad as a hatter in each of the ways that should matter. I had doubts at the start, but the flick won my heart with its campy, irreverent splatter.
And then dicks.
So good.
And then cod pieces, and then yes,
a
and then
limerick
severed,
needs
and
to have
severed
dicks
heads.
and vaginas in it somewhere.
And then dicks. Oh my God. Sound bites are just abounding in this episode. I'm so happy.
And then,
All right, Steph. I've come up with a haiku and it's really bad, so I think I should do it before you close us out with something good.
My haiku is not great, but you go ahead and go.
Okay, I came up with mine in 5 minutes, so yours is certainly better.
No.
Okay, my haiku following the 575 rule is: here for blood wrestles with D. Snyder's yelling nonsense at me. Yes.
Very good.
not bad for off the cuff.
How
Yeah.
dare you? Honestly,
the goddamn audacity.
You assholes.
All
bring
right.
us on home.
I also prepared a haiku. 575. Here we go. Bonkers blood and gonzo gore. Sexy boys, killer moves, Wesker gone wild. Fiercely funny, never a bore.
Fantastic. No notes.
you.
That's
That
great.
should be. Yep, that sums it up right there. That is the film.
That's the one. That's the one. Okay,
Yeah.
so in keeping with our ethos, should we all go around and say, do we feel like this is a guilty pleasure?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay, I'll finish it up since I picked it. So let's start with you, Steph. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, are we keeping this short and sweet and just saying, no, like, we're not doing a little dissertation, are we?
I don't give a fuck. Talk as much as you want.
Jesus. Well, I feel
Well,
like
since
we
you're going to
said a
threaten
lot.
me, I mean,
I know.
God.
Ow.
I got more aggressive there than I intended.
Let me
to.
go
I
cry for a
apologize.
minute, then I'll come
She
back
went like
in.
100. She went all in.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've said it, so I'll just give a little summation. I mean, I fucking love this movie. I guess it is a guilty pleasure in that, like, it's not high art, it's not super sophisticated, but like, it's just fun, and it's everything that it's trying to be. It's very aware of what it wants to be, and it's exactly that. I had a great time. Like I mentioned, I had a smile from pretty much the second it started. So the second it ended, I was, like I said in my little haiku, I was never once bored. I never knew what it was going to throw at me next. It just was wildly entertaining. And it is, Kelly, to your point, it's one of those movies I can't wait to, like, I want to go spread the word, and I want other people to watch this with me, and I want them to go watch it on their own so that we can talk about it. So for me, 100%, this is one of the most enjoyable guilty pleasures I think we've done. And I'm very grateful that you picked it, Kelly.
Oh, yay. Jack?
Yay. I'm gonna piggyback off of that because I agree. But for me, it was a little different. And for me, in this case, I guess specifically, the definition of a guilty pleasure is when this movie first started, I was just kind of okay, and I was like, oh, okay, like, and then as I started to kind of vibe with it, and I kind of started to see what they were actually trying to accomplish. And to be fair, I mean, there are some really, really dumb parts of this movie, but a lot of them work when you look at the movie as a whole, and look at the way that they're trying to deliver this film to you. And for me, it kind of about the halfway point, or maybe like a third of the way through, it really started to click. And I was kind of no longer, and I was getting more and more invested, and I was starting to laugh, and I was starting to kind of giggle, and I was taking more notes that weren't just, that's wrong, and that's wrong, and that's wrong. I was having a good time. And it's like, to Steph's point, you do not know what this film is going to throw at you next. You have no fucking clue. And it's been a long time since a movie, serious or otherwise, has really done that. And one of those movies that I probably would never have watched on my own. So yes, thank you for suggesting it, because it was a fucking great time.
Well, obviously, I do consider it a guilty pleasure since I picked it. But I think that it really hits the right balance between guilt and pleasure, in that the pleasure is much heavier than the guilt. I think that for something to be truly a guilty pleasure, like you need to really feel more pleasure than guilt. There's a lot that's really stupid about this movie. That's not, I don't know that you could say it's a good movie, but God, it's a fun movie. And I can honestly say that I think that a lot of what makes a guilty pleasure is being able to enjoy talking to friends about it. And it's been such a pleasure and a privilege to talk to two of my dearest remote friends about this movie. I've had a great time tonight. I've loved talking to you guys and hearing your thoughts about it. And even though obviously in an ideal world, we'd have been able to watch it together, I feel like we got to sort of share the experience. And I think a truly great guilty pleasure movie is something where the shared experience, whether it is watching it in the moment or getting to talk about it after the fact, is part of what makes it so goddamn delightful and charming. I think that is part of what makes a guilty pleasure. So to me, this is the truest definition of guilty pleasure, and I've been so happy to share it with you guys.
Thank you for coming to our show, and good night.
Until next time, this is the Guilty Pleasures crew signing off and reminding you to give in to pleasure wherever you can, and don't you dare feel guilty about it.
Okay, then.
Okay, well, we did it, guys.
We did it.
Hell yes.
Hell
Hells
yeah.
to the yeah.